Stop button to activate, press space.
Alright, so in this recording, now it's been a while since I've done a video or a recording or anything like that, but the last two videos that I made, actually, I demonstrated some older macOS PowerPC virtual machines, but the problem is with those is, you know, PowerPC emulation, like I said in those videos, just isn't that good on modern hardware. So the audio was laggy, voiceover was laggy, everything was just laggy, and it wasn't working very well. The sound was just really bad. But the thing is, in those videos, in one or probably even both of them actually, I mentioned that I have been wanting to get an iBook G4 computer. Well, I got one. Yeah, so a couple months ago in July, actually, beginning of July, I found an iBook G4 on eBay, and I was able to make an offer. The seller accepted, and I bought it. So this iBook G4, this is in really good condition. It's a 2004 iBook G4. Now, the G4 supports operating systems from 10.0 all the way up to 10.5. But the limitations with anything earlier than 10.4, because there's no screen reader, there is no way to use those operating systems, unfortunately, if you can't see the screen. There is a screen reader called Outspoken for Mac OS 9, but Outspoken wasn't available for those early OS 10 versions. But anyway, that's not really what this recording's about. This one really is going to kind of demonstrate my iBook G4. So this is just kind of a recording, audio only, so I'll just kind of do a physical description of this computer. So basically, on the left side, well, this computer isn't really, it's thicker than a lot of modern laptops, I would say, but for its time, it's actually not. It's thinner than a lot of other laptops from the early 2000s. This is the 12-inch model, by the way, the 12-inch iBook G4. So yeah, but on the left side, there's kind of the vents for the fan. And then there's a 3.5 millimeter audio jack, which is hooked up to some external speakers, so you'll be able to hear the computer a little better. There's a FireWire port, a couple of those actually, and then some USB ports, and then an Ethernet port and a modem port, so you can actually hook this up to dial-up, which I have done. Maybe I'll do a recording about that later on. But anyway, on the right side, there is a slot-loading DVD drive. I think the newer iBook, the older iBook models, used to have a standard DVD tray, like most laptops, where you would the tray would pop out and you put the CD in, then you push it back in. But starting with the G4, it had a slot-loading drive, so that's pretty cool. And then yeah, above that there's the port where you plug in the charger. Now, this battery actually still works, and just because we can, I'm gonna run this on battery only for this entire recording. But anyway, another interesting thing about this and earlier laptops, Apple laptops, is that there's on the front of it there's a button, and that's where the it actually latches closed. So instead of a magnet holding it shut, it actually is held shut by this latch. So yeah, that's something interesting. Modern Apple laptops use a magnet to close it, to keep the lid closed. But yeah, so let's go ahead and open it, and yeah, inside there's the keyboard and the trackpad. So the trackpad, it's a little different than a lot of the newer MacBook models, where the trackpad is just one unit. But this one, the trackpad is, well, it's the actual trackpad itself where you move the mouse and everything, and then the button is actually below it. So that's something interesting. And then yeah, the keyboard is interesting because on the corners of it, there are two spring-loaded latches, and you can pull them back, and then you can actually pull the keyboard up, and that's how you can actually replace some components in there, like you can add more RAM, and then you can also replace the wireless Wi-Fi card, which is called the airport card in there. I think the iBook G3 had wireless support, but I don't know if it does or not. But I know starting with the G4 it does. Most G4 models, even though, didn't come with an airport card. You had to buy one yourself. It was an extra accessory. But the later models, I think, the later G4 models, like the 2004, I think, and later, had the airport card pre-installed. So yeah, these are upgradable as far as the RAM. They usually come with, the G4 comes with 256, or no, either 128 megabytes of RAM, 256 megabytes of RAM, or 512 built in. Mine came with 256, and they're all upgradable. You can get up to 1.25 gigabytes if you buy a 1 gigabyte stick, which I have done. I upgraded the RAM on this, so yeah. But yeah, that's enough of that. That's kind of a physical description of the iBook G4. This is what the keyboard sounds like. Kind of like any laptop keyboard, I think. Although it's different than modern MacBook keyboards. These ones are more... I like the feel of this one. I like the feel of the G4 keyboard. But yeah, overall, this thing is in really good condition. So yeah, let's check out the internal specs of it now. I'll go ahead and turn it on, and you'll hear it boot up. There we go. And it should boot up into 10.4, macOS 10.4 with VoiceOver. Now this computer, actually, I'll talk about some stuff a little more as we go, because I have some interesting stuff on here. Some of it will be for later videos, but some of it I'll kind of mention today.
It is 11 o'clock p.m.
In a second here, it should come up. VoiceOver should start talking.
Welcome to Macintosh. VoiceOver is running. Finder Macintosh HD selected.
Okay, so that's macOS 10.4. You might be kind of familiar with that if you've used it, or if you listen to my other video that I did demonstrating that operating system in a virtual machine. But you can definitely hear on the actual hardware, it's way more stable, so the software isn't that good. The emulation, it's hard to emulate PowerPC hardware really good on newer machines, so that's why it's like really laggy and everything. But here on actual hardware, it's really good. So this is macOS 10.4. I have some stuff on my desktop here,
Macintosh HD selected.
That kind of stuff.
Macintosh HD selected.
That's the hard drive name. So let's go into About This Mac.
Menu bar on Apple. Apple menu, About This Software, About This Mac, About This Mac, About This Mac, Window version 10.4.6.
Yeah, so version 10.4.6.
Image. Software update button.
Now, software update. I think that the software update server, actually still works. So I think if you click that, if you're connected to the internet, it actually can still download the latest update, which in my case, I'm running macOS 10.4.6, and the last one for this is 10.4.11. So yeah, I don't know. I actually think the software update still works. I should try it out. I am connected to the internet over Wi-Fi, which also still works on this, so that's pretty cool. But yeah.
Processor 1.2 gigahertz PowerPC G4.
So 1.2 gigahertz G4. Yeah. It was actually pretty fast for its time for back then.
Memory 1.25 GB DDR SDRAM.
It's a 1.25 gigabytes of RAM. That's because I upgraded it. It originally had 256 megabytes, but I upgraded it with a 1 gigabyte stick of RAM. Which, yeah, actually, if I can definitely do a video of kind of how to install the RAM in the iBook G4. It's a little bit of a process, but it is doable. So, yeah, if anyone wants to kind of see a video of how to do that, or really just a recording anyway, I can definitely go over how to do that.
Startup disk. Macintosh HD.
That's the startup disk.
More info, but TM1983-2006 Apple Computer 8.
Apple Computer. So that is something different with older Mac OS 10 versions. Is I think even with 10.4.11 by then it switched to, it was just Apple incorporated. But back before, in this time with 10.4.6, it was Apple Computer Incorporated, so that's a little bit of a difference there.
All rights reserved.
So yeah, that's the about this Mac here. Also, another thing is with this older version of 10.4, I don't know if all versions of 10.4 are like this, but I know that this one, like 10.4.6, is, if you press a key, the kind of default sound that you get in, that you're used to in like Mac OS 10, is a little bit different. It's older. Now, this sound is actually still available. Well, I don't think it is in modern macOS anymore, but older OS 10, it was still available as a sound that you could use, but it just wasn't the default. But this is the default sound in 10.4.6. When you like press a key and you can't move or can't do something. That's not a voiceover related sound. That's just a general macOS system sound, by the way, also. But yeah, that is the about this Mac window. So I'll press escape to get out of there. Let's check out the hard drive now.
Macintosh HD selected.
Get info, press Command I.
Macintosh HD info dialog. Macintosh HD modified. Macintosh 8 modified. Today at 11:03 p.m. Spotlight cup blank. Edit text. General. Kind. Created. Created. Tuesday, September 9, 2025 to 18 a.m.
Yeah, that's when I installed this operating system.
Modified. Today at 11:03 p.m. Format. macOS. Capacity. 14.88 GB.
Now, this is what's interesting. 14.88 gigabytes. Now, this computer has a 30 gigabyte hard drive inside of it, but it's only showing us 14 gigabytes, and the reason for that is because this is actually not the only operating system on this computer. I set up a dual boot, 2 partitions on this computer, so it's running 10.4 and then also macOS 10.5. So I'll kind of demonstrate that dual boot process in a little bit, but yeah, that's why it's only showing 15 gigabytes. Or, well, almost 15 gigabytes.
Available 9.81 GB.
9 gigabytes. That's what's available here.
Used 5.07 GB on disk. 5,443,158,016 bytes. Color label.
So yeah, that's this thing here. I don't know, actually, yeah, Command. Now, newer macOS versions, starting with 10.5, actually had a couple buttons at the top of the screen where it was like zoom, minimize, and close. But 10.4 doesn't have that. VoiceOver just kind of wraps back around. But I found that the easiest way to close everything, actually, and go back to the main desktop is to just press Command Option W, which closes all the windows.
Close all. Color label.
So yeah, that goes back to the desktop. And you'll notice here that I have 2 hard drives on here.
Macintosh HD.
There's Macintosh HD, which is the one we just did, and then
Mac HD.
Mac HD. Now that is my 10.5 Leopard partition. So yeah, we'll kind of go over that in a little bit. Actually, we'll do that right now. Go to the, so there's actually 2 ways to dual boot on an Apple computer like this one. The kind of most common way is to turn the computer off and then turn it back on, and right when you hear the startup sound, you'd hold down the Option key, and then it kind of brings up a boot menu, and you can use the arrow keys to move to the operating system that you want. That's the quickest way to do it, but that way isn't really VoiceOver accessible since it doesn't work in that boot menu. So the way to do it, the way I found that's the most accessible to do this is if you go in the System Preferences.
Closing menu bar, Apple app about software macOS system preferences, ellipse,
System Preferences.
System
And
forward short blank, scroll up, interact,
if you go down to the bottom,
universal access,
Startup Disk is kind of one of the options here. That's what you'll have if you have a dual boot system. So if you go in that,
press Startup Disk button. Forward short blank, select the system you want to use to start up your computer. Currently not busy, scroll area.
now there's this scroll area you can interact with.
Interact with scroll area. 3 items. macOS 10, 10.4.6 on Macintosh.
So that's the one we're in right now, but if we go over here,
macOS 10, 10.5.6 on Mac.
we have macOS 10.5.6. So let's go ahead and click this. It's just a button.
Press macOS 10.
And then we can stop interacting. And
you have selected macOS 10, 10.5.6 on the volume Mac HD.
So now next to that there's this button.
Restart button.
It's a restart button, so you just kind of click that.
Press restart. Restarting.
And now, next time the computer boots up, it's actually going to boot up into macOS Leopard 10.5.6. That's the kind of the most accessible way to do this. But yeah. Now every time, because that's now the selected startup disk, if I were to shut this computer down and turn it back on, it will always boot up into 10.5 unless I go back in there and change that back to the other startup disk partition. So now it's a little bit, this computer, it takes quite a bit longer on Mac OS 10.5. So it's going to take at least a minute and a half before we get to the desktop, before VoiceOver comes on. And you'll hear the difference here, that when 10.5 comes on, VoiceOver will be different, because 10.5 Leopard was the first Mac OS version that the Alex voice was introduced. So, yeah, that's an interesting, a cool thing. And the VoiceOver sounds are also different in 10.5. A lot of everything is. But it'll come on in a second. It just takes a while to. It's a little slower to boot up. You can kind of hear the hard drive going.
Welcome to Mac OS 10. VoiceOver is running.
Little
Binary.
delayed.
Desktop.
But yeah, that's a kind of a difference there. It's like with the older versions of macOS, like you just heard macOS 10.4, when it turns on, it says "Welcome to Macintosh." This one says "Welcome to macOS 10." So that's kind of a little bit of a different thing between these two versions. And yeah, so this is macOS 10.5. Now it's the same hard drive, just two separate partitions on the drive. But they're basically two independent operating systems. So yeah, that's just because I have desktop items on my 10.4 operating system doesn't mean they're the same ones on 10.5. Although you can still access both the file systems, both hard drives and all that stuff, but yeah, my desktop here in 10.5 is pretty empty. I have nothing, so but yeah, basically we kind of we can go through some stuff just to demonstrate the VoiceOver sounds here.
Utilities. Icon view. Icon view. Interact with. Activity monitor. Activity
Yeah, in
monitor.
this version, this is the first, like, 10.4 VoiceOver used to kind of just wrap around, but in 10.5, when you hit, like, the top or the bottom, it actually doesn't let you continue. It actually...
Activity monitor.
It has this sound that happens, which is actually different from 10.6. But yeah, you can kind of go through the utilities here and just...
Airport utility. Audio MIDI setup. Bluetooth. Color sync console. Directory. Disk. Grapher. Keychain
You can hear
access.
that the sounds are a little different.
Migration assistant.
The
selected.
voice is much higher quality.
Network utility. ODBC. Podcast capture selected.
But yeah,
Ray utility. Remote install Mac. System profiler selected. X11 selected.
but what I'll do here is I'm going to open voiceover utility.
System voiceover utility. Open Finder item. Voiceover utility selected.
And we're going to use the older voice that was just in macOS
Voiceover utility.
10.4 because the transition from macOS 10.4 to 10.5, the original Macintalk speech got a little bit of an upgrade. It got the new Alex voice, but the original is still there. It's just slightly different, so you might kind of hear the difference.
Login greeting. Utility categories table. Interact with general. Verbosity. Speech. Stop interacting. Show additional. Mute speech. Voices. Select pronunciation. Voice. Rate. Pitch. Volume. Default voice. Alex. Default voice. Menu checkmark. Alex. Back. Bup. The range. Good. Fred.
So Fred is the voice that was in macOS 10.4, but yeah, you'll hear that it's the same voice.
Fred, nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come.
Yeah, he's the same voice, but quite a bit faster and just sounds different than in 10.4.
Default voice. Fred, default voice, pop button. Default voice, volume, pitch, rate, voices. Pronunciation, tab 202. Voices, select tab 102. New speech, uncheck checkbox. Show additional voice options, collapse disclose utility categories.
So yeah, a little faster, like way faster than 10.4 Fred.
Show additional
But
use voice pronunciation voices.
I actually want to see something.
Voiceover off. Voiceover on. Voiceover utility.
Yeah, okay.
Voices, rate, pitch, volume, default Fred, default voice.
And of course,
Fred,
you know,
menu check mark.
this is still macOS, so you still have like the all the other Macintalk voices.
Range, cello, buck, Bruce, poet, Bruce.
Bruce. Nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come.
So yeah, you know, all the macOS 10 like Macintalk speech voices, although they got a little bit of an upgrade from 10.4.
Default Bruce. Default menu checkmark. Bruce.
But yeah, let's go
Hills. Bob. Bad news. Alex.
let's go back to Alex.
Alex.
Interestingly enough, it doesn't say the preview. That like the sample text when you switch to Alex in Leopard. I don't know if that's a bug, but it just doesn't. But yeah. So let's
Menu checkmark. Alex. Default voice. 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 Utility. Close button. Press close button. Finder.
and then the last thing we'll do is we'll go in here in
Menu bar. Apple. Mac. About his Mac.
about this Mac,
Voice.
and
Window. About his Mac.
you'll see that it's kind of the same specs here.
Processor. 1.2 GHz PowerPC G4. Memory. 1.25 gigabytes. Startup disk. Mac HD. More info button.
But here's where it's going to be different.
TM and 1983 2008 Apple Incorporated.
2008 Apple Incorporated. So back in macOS 10.4, it said Apple Computer Incorporated. That was 10.4.6. Now this is 10.5.6 from 2008. So this one says Apple Incorporated instead of Apple Computer Incorporated. So that's kind of a different thing because this one's 2 years newer, and by then they changed the company name slightly. But yeah,
More info. Mac startup disk. One memory. One processor. Version of dim. Close button.
now if I wanted to go back to 10.4 Tiger, it's a very easy
Finder.
way to do this. You just kind of
Terminal.
go to that same,
Stop interacting. Zoom. Close button. Press close. Desktop.
just kind of go to the same thing, system preferences.
Menu bar. Apple. About system preferences. Ellipsis. System preferences. Desktop.
And
System scroll area. Interact with. Time startup disk button.
oh yeah, that's another new thing too, is macOS 10.5 was the first operating system to introduce the time machine, which is kind of like, you know, Windows PCs, you have Windows Restore, which kind of backs up your like files. And actually, Windows Restore or System Restore doesn't back up your files. I think it only backs up the system apps and stuff. But Time Machine was introduced with macOS 10.5, and it does basically that. But Time Machine will, it basically, you can get another extra hard drive or another partition even on the hard drive built in to the computer, and you can basically create an entire copy of your operating system. So yeah, Time Machine was a pretty revolutionary thing when it came out with 10.5. But anyway, yeah, let's go back to the startup disk menu.
Time startup disk button. Press startup disk button. Select the system you want to use. Busy progress indicator. Scroll area. Interact. Mac OS 10 10.5.6 Mac OS 10 10.4.6 on Macintosh HD button.
So you can just, it's the same thing, just click that button and
Press
then...
Mac OS. Stop interacting. You have selected Mac OS 10 10.4.6 on the volume. Restart button.
And it's the same thing, you just kind of click restart.
Press restart. Interact with dialog.
The thing that's slightly different here is instead of just restarting right away, it asks you first if you want to do it.
Are you sure you want to restart the computer? Are you sure you want to restart the computer? System preference. Are you sure your computer will start up using Mac OS 10 10.4.6 on cancel restart button.
And you can restart and...
Press restart button. Restarting.
So, yep. Now I think here it takes a little while to actually restart. But it does eventually, and it will load back up into macOS 10.4 Tiger. Which is a little faster than 10.5 on this computer. Well, 10.5 is fast, it's just not as fast when it comes to booting up. It takes a long time to boot up, but 10.5, this whole thing is way faster than those virtual machines. But any second now, we should get VoiceOver.
Welcome to Macintosh. VoiceOver is running. Finder Macintosh HD selected.
And there we go. We're back in 10.4, so it's as easy as that. Yeah, dual booting. Maybe, yeah, if anyone wants to like know how to dual boot on an iBook G4 or really on any kind of like PowerPC based Apple computer, definitely kind of just leave a comment because I can definitely do that. I can do it's not really, you know, that's something pretty straightforward. You would think you could use disk utility to dual boot, and I thought that too, except you kind of can't because to create, you know, you can resize a partition pretty easily in disk utility. You can make the partitions smaller, but to create two different partitions from the disk utility, at least the older one, it was pretty inaccessible actually, and because it uses some sort of like diagram and like a divider thing that you have to drag between the the hard drive to make two partitions, and like it's an interesting weird process that I could never get to work with VoiceOver, so I ended up using the terminal. Actually, it's not that complicated at all, but yeah, if anyone wants to know how to do that, how to make a dual boot system using terminal, then definitely drop a comment because it's not that difficult at all. But yeah, that was a demonstration of my new iBook G4 that I got. I will definitely be making more videos about this, or really just recordings about it in the future, pretty soon here actually, because I have a really interesting video coming up. So yeah, but that is basically it for this first iBook G4 video. But definitely be sure to stay tuned to these videos because I will be making a video soon, and if you're interested in old screen readers and old text-to-speech and software and classic Mac OS, well, you won't want to miss this one. But in the meantime, that's it for this one.